Hello and welcome to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I, as always, am your host, Josh Carr, and with me today for episode 15, we're on now, is the wonderful Gerard Groves. How are you?
Hello, yes, I'm very good. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
I mean, let's start. Obviously, I do this every week. I should probably introduce why we're here. There's a program that you might have heard of called Doctor Who, and I get guests on every week, and we talk about Doctor Who and the many joys of it. And you are a big Doctor Who fan, which is a great start. But where did it start for you? How did Doctor Who begin? Where did you fall in love with Doctor Who, as we all have?
Well, it's funny, actually, we're recording this tonight of all nights on the Friday, 26th of March. I've been, the past day or so now, I've kind of been in the headspace of 6, 7, 8-year-old Gerard. And that's where it all did start for me. You know, there was... I have this extremely vivid memory of being sat on the floor and that BBC One trailer where Christopher Eccleston's running away from the fire.
Yes,
you get that
it's often mentioned on the podcast. I think this is probably the 6th or 7th time it's come up in 15 episodes, because it's just such an iconic trailer. But yeah, I mean, it's almost 16 years to the minute. Like, probably at some point in this podcast, we'll hit 16 years to the minute that it first broadcast. So Rose was the start for you then.
Yeah, I think what was really quite tantalizing about the show was the fact I was aware of its history. And when I say that, I mean I knew there was a history, and you know, I knew it was almost like this mythical thing was coming back, and that added to the complete hype and excitement about it. You know, my mum would tell me a little bit about it, and then I'd see something in the Radio Times, and you'd have this guide of all the past Doctors, and it was I don't know, by the time we were sat down on the tiny little square TV watching Rose and those title sequences came on, it was like it's like my first time attending a church that I've been, you know, reading about the religion of for a couple of weeks. I was excited. I was, and then for the episode to be really good and actually hook me was an extra bonus. Because if it had been shit, I'd probably be like, oh, the overblown hype, rubbish. But no, it totally delivered on those mythical expectations.
That's good. That's good. So you were hooked from day one, like me. Essentially, we seem to have had very similar experiences, and I mean, 16 years. God, I feel old.
I know, right? It's kind of terrifying, crazy, isn't it? I think I saw today that it's now been back on longer than it was away, right? From the wilderness years, which is kind of brilliant in a way. You know, the show has now, you know, it's proved its survivability. It keeps going, you know, which is brilliant. But yeah, I remember I had I used to record everything, you know, tape it off the TV, and I taped Rose, and literally that week between Rose and End of the World, I must have watched it like 10 times, and I keep rewatching the Next Time trailer. I think what's so often understated about New Who was those Next Time trailers. I was obsessed with them.
They're great. They are great.
I just remember sitting on my nan's bed. I had it upstairs. I was watching it again. Well, because my family were probably sick of it. They're like, go upstairs. And I just remember just like The Last Human, Cassandra. Like the trailer was just, what will this be?
It always got you hyped. Always got you hyped. Just something that I tweeted out about a little while ago, actually. That I want to get your opinion on. Where do you stand on Next Time trailers at the end of part 1 of a 2-parter? I dead against.
Yeah.
What's your stance? I know this is a very niche topic.
No, I love it. This is exactly why I'm on the podcast.
It caused, when I tweeted about it, it caused a bit of a ruckus on Twitter, and a lot of people strongly agreeing with me, probably too strongly. Like people very passionate about it, but some people disagreeing and saying they love them. So where do you stand?
I think growing up as a kid, I started to kind of notice the pattern, and I agree with the pattern, which is don't have a next time trailer when the cliffhanger's really good, or when the stakes are extremely high on that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's when you want to remove the trailer, when you really want to up that pain.
Agreed.
You know, I think there was always a trailer in series 1. And in reality, like, I don't know, maybe at the end of The Empty Child, that's a pretty solid cliffhanger, you know, it's pretty scary. But I think the levity of a trailer there and showing you what was in store was probably good. I think it was a good thing. But I don't know, when was the first time we didn't get one? Was that the Rise of the Cybermen? I think it was the first time we didn't get a next time trailer. Or if we did, probably, it was at the end of the credits. But that, I think, was the perfect time to snatch it away, because that for me was the first cliffhanger that got me. I was really like, how are they going to get out of this one? And then of course he pulls out some TARDIS or whatever and blows them up. But I don't know, I think like series 3 as well, right? That the Master the Master next time trailer is a weird one, actually, because they do have a next time trailer at the end of Utopia, but they don't show the Doctor, Martha, or Jack in the whole thing. As if to say like they won't survive.
That's where I like them. I'm trying to remember the one for the Stolen Earth now, because obviously that's probably the biggest cliffhanger we've had with that fake out regeneration. I'm pretty sure they don't show. I think there's like one of those flashy, where it's just faces flashing up, isn't it?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
What works so well is the to be continued. That was great. And I don't know, that cliffhanger though never got me. I don't know if it's a Doctor Who fan thing or what, when you're just so embedded in the nerdiness of behind the scenes, but everyone was going, oh, can you believe it? David Tennant's going. I was just, as a kid, like, no, he's not. It's clearly not going to regenerate. It's clearly not going to happen. It wouldn't make sense. I don't know. The Mortal Peril is more of a preferred cliffhanger, but I appreciate that that was definitely got the headlines, didn't it? Everyone was talking about it.
I love talking about cliffhangers. What would you say is your favorite cliffhanger?
I think it might actually, just purely on the what I said earlier about being young and it being my first one, that Rise of the Cybermen one. It's by no means the best cliffhanger in the show. It's by no means the most shocking or unique or whatever. But my heart had sank as a kid. Those Cybermen scared the bejesus out of me. It was the scariest thing. That's got to be it for me. What's yours?
Oh, now that is a question. Well, we had Will Carlisle, Mr. TARDIS, the YouTuber, on, and his submission to the Corridor of Fame was Bad Wolf Partner of the Ways, and the Bad Wolf cliffhanger. He summed it up perfectly. He said, for once, it's not a cliffhanger for the companion. It's not a cliffhanger for the Doctor. It's a cliffhanger for the Daleks.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the Doctor is winning at that point. There's not really any mortal peril for the Doctor or the companion. It's all for the Daleks. And I just think they nailed that. They really nailed that. Yeah, I love that episode.
And talk. Go on. I was saying, talking of next time trailers as well. The trailer that comes after Boomtown, which shows the Daleks, and you go, oh, they're coming back for the finale. As a kid, when you don't really appreciate what Boomtown was doing and how kind of beautifully written that is, and you're kind of like, this is a boring one. This is not really much happening. It's all just talking. To see the Daleks to the end in that trailer. I remember my mum turning to me and be like, "Ooh, Daleks!" It was a great moment. That finale is brilliant. That is it's so good.
And I've got my favourite. I've just remembered my favourite,
go on.
which is actually, funnily enough, technically spoiled in the Next Time trailer for the episode, which is the Cult of Skaro coming out of the Void ship.
Oh, you're so right. I agree with you. This is the brilliant one.
Yeah. Well, I must have missed the Next Time trailer, or I must have missed this, because they show a Dalek blaster in the Next Time trailer at the end of Fear Her, which must have been so annoying for diehard fans, like hearing that noise and being like,
seeing the skeleton.
But that cliffhanger and the scene following it as well at the beginning of Doomsday, it's just some of the best Doctor Who going.
You're so right, actually.
I absolutely adore it.
I might have to change my mind and agree with you on that, because but I'm putting myself back in the space of being a kid and Dalek set coming out and just losing my mind at that. But I was pretty naive about that trailer, because I noticed the Dalek blaster, and as a kid I went, oh, they're reusing the same effect for the Cybermen. That's pretty lazy, isn't it? Complete fool, Gerard.
And it's the bit just before it when the Doctor's talking to the Cyber leader, and they say like the ship isn't ours, and you go, oh shit. I didn't go oh shit when I was 8 and I watched it, but I lost my mind. I
think that's what Russell was so brilliant at, was building that slow sinking in terror tension that would come in especially in his finale cliffhangers. Like that same feeling applies completely to the Utopia Master reveal. When you start to when you see the fob watch and you just start to get a sense that, okay, this isn't what it seems. And it starts to sink in. It's that same feeling. Like I was sat on my nan and granddad's floor staring up at that TV, and second the Master reveal came in, it was a mind-bending moment. Just God. It's hard to pick a favorite of anything with Doctor Who, especially those first few seasons. I just love everything.
Because the whole Russell era is just so fueled by nostalgia for me. Like I just adore that whole era, and it's so good that he brought cliffhangers through from Classic Who, because I mean cliffhangers are in Classic Who are brilliant as well, but some of them do just sort of spring out of nowhere, and some of them are just zoom ins on the Doctor's face over and over and over again. And then you got Planet of the Giants, where the cliffhangers are a sink or a cat. It's just mental. Have you watched much Classic? It's not something we've touched on. Have you watched much Classic Who?
Yeah, it's funny, I've got a really mixed education on Classic Who, because when it first came back, and we're going back again to 7-year-old me, my mum went to Silver Screen, which is like a HMV that no longer exists, and asked the guy working in there, what are the best Classic Who's to get my son, which was a really nice thing for her to do, and he recommended the 5 Doctors and Resurrection of the Daleks. So then I think maybe after the end of the world or something, pretty early on in season 1, I watched the 5 Doctors and had my mind blown, which was a fantastic experience. And the Dalek at the beginning of that one terrified me, and then so did the Daleks in Resurrection as well. And I know it's not everyone's favorite Dalek design, but there's something about that kind of shabby black grey look. And the more screamy voices, they're more kind of crazy. If I ever had my shot at doing the Daleks, I would go that route. I think they're so much scarier when they're kind of cobbled together and mad. I found the older Dalek stuff really freaky. And when it came for Dalek in series 1, there was a lot of excitement about it, and the modernization of it was really cool. But I never found them scary. It never hit those notes of old times. But I think since then, my Classic Who, I don't know. I then got the DVD of Remembrance of the Daleks, which is another fantastic. That's probably one of my all-time favorite Classic Who's. It's brilliant. And then I don't know, really. I think a lot of the time it would be like picking stuff up at the car boot sale, or getting the occasional disc. The Death to the Daleks. They're all Dalek episodes. You get into the mindset of young Gerard here, where my priorities lay. But Death. I remember seeing that cover at the boot sale, and I don't know, in comparative to the other VHS that were there, that was like, wow, Dalek on fire, cool. I also got the beginning box set, which is the first 3 stories with William Hartnell, and that was fascinating to me because it was just even more different to the Peter Davison era that I'd become used to. I think I watched the pilot, the original pilot, that I then had to can because it wasn't good enough. I think, and then I just skipped the redone version, went straight to episode 2. But I didn't notice a thing as a kid. I was like, yes, this is really cool. But I think it's given me a real soft spot for that kind of early 60s era. That kind of baked into me pretty quick. But in reality, to be honest, I've not really watched all that many first, second, third Doctor stories. It's like kind of on my BritBox to-do list. I recently went through and watched pretty much all the Tom Bakers on BritBox, and now I've just got onto Time Flight with Peter Davison. And the Master's just revealed himself, and it was a bit like Christ. I still don't ever see it coming. I never ever see it coming. It was the same with Enough in Time. I knew John Sim was coming back. I'd seen him in that trailer, and it still shocked me. I'm a total.
You've still got some crackers coming later on. I mean, if you've not seen a lot of the Pertwee era, there's a lot of Master in there. There is a lot of Master. There's like 2 whole series where he's literally in almost every episode. He's basically a side character at that point. But that's interesting because I had pretty much seen no Classic Who up until last year. And as listeners know, I've binged all of Classic Who. I went from the beginning on BritBox and went all the way to Sylvester. Took me about a year, but I got through.
It's such an amazing thing to be able to do now, though. Like I know Robert Shearman kind of touched upon it in that episode with you, but it's like the brilliant, the fact everything is archived and immediately available now is just bloody wonderful. As a kid, I used to tape Thunderbirds off the TV, and I'd cherish every single episode. And now all of it, all the Thunderbirds, all the Captain Scarlet's just there. Can watch it. Kids these days don't know they're born.
And now we're getting animated stories. We're getting missing stories animated. That's amazing, which is exciting at the minute because I believe there's very, very strong rumours about Evil of the Daleks and the Abominable Snowmen being animated. Make of that what you will, but I am very, very excited for that.
Yeah, I love those animated. I really like the Shada animation. I love the style of it. I really buy into that. I think it's so wonderful that we're able to do that. That Doctor Who's still kicking, and there's still that demand for it. And hopefully, we can get to a point where every episode is available in a visual form, right? I also can't forget, I cannot miss out, because as another big part of my classic education was also through the Time team. Ben Cook exposed me to a lot of Doctor Who I probably wouldn't otherwise have just randomly stuck on. And there was talking of cliffhangers, which is Ace's first episode. Which one was that? Was that Dragonfire?
Dragonfire! I know exactly what you're about to talk about.
That cliffhanger was but I love it. It's ludicrous. Hilarious. It's not explained, but it cuts to him just hanging off the edge of a cliff via his umbrella, and that's suddenly it's like the most contrived cliffhanger in the world. But that's so wonderful about Doctor Who. You kind of love it. It's kind of ridiculous, but
I tweeted out about it when I watched it, when I got to it in my rewatch, and a lot of people said to me, well, originally there was lines in there that explained it so that he had no other option but to just climb onto a cliff face. But Yeah, firstly, you've got him climbing over, which is ridiculous in and of itself, and then you've got him just deciding to cling to his umbrella instead, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious every time I watch it. What a cliffhanger!
I think there's some real beauty to old Doctor Who. I think in all of its like weirdness, and because some of it is just stellar, it's like fantastic TV, and then some of it really maybe it doesn't hold up so well, like from the eyes of a casual viewer. But when you're going in it from the eyes of someone who loves Doctor Who, none of that matters. Like the way I kind of think about Doctor Who, because I haven't seen so much of the classic, hopefully I'll one day remedy that. But it's kind of like, especially if you're coming at it from kind of us more younger fans, I'm maybe being a bit kind now saying us as younger fans, or you're far younger fans than us now, god damn it.
I know.
But that's what I was kind of saying about seeing, when it came back with series 1, you've got the Radio Times listings, there is this mythology to Doctor Who, and I kind of love that. It's almost like these stories are real. It's almost like the Doctor is this real mythological thing, and the episodes we've seen are these like beautifully polished modern tellings of these stories, because that's where TV's at now. But it's kind of like, I don't know how to word this, how to articulate it, but it's like classic Who is almost this attempt to tell these extremely extravagant, thought-provoking tales, these mythical tales, and it's doing what it can at the time with the wobbly sets or whatever, and you get these glimpses into these past stories, these past myths. And I think like the Target novels are another great example of that, because they often, I'm aware they really expand upon those stories and do stuff outside of the budget constraints. And it's and then Big Finish as well. Obviously, they're separate stories, but you've got another medium, and there's all these different ins to these tales of who the Doctor was, And I there's just something kind of tangible and real about this character and his history, and you fill in these gaps with your imagination. I don't know, I can't articulate it, but it feels incredibly unique because it's been on for so long.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's like you said, there's so many ins, like even excluding TV, like we've had people on here who started with Big Finish, we've had people who started with Target novels, we've had people who've started with the strangest aspects of Doctor Who, and then it's gone on from there, which is so cool. But going more onto your later years, so years later, you're a fan of Doctor Who, and then you find yourself working for the BBC.
I know, right? Yeah.
I mean, for anyone who doesn't know at home, because doing a bit of research and trying to find, like, you've done a lot of different things, and you've covered a lot of different areas. So just sort of sum up like the kind of work that you and how you started at the BBC and how it all spiraled.
I've got a good story, actually. I kind of realized I've got a good story. I mean, maybe it's not. It's nice to me, which is that I first found YouTube back in 2006 to watch a Series 2 trailer. I wanted to, I'd seen that Coming Soon trailer from Christmas Invasion. I wanted more, and they just put it up on the BBC YouTube channel. And that was my first into YouTube. And I remember commenting on that BBC YouTube channel, like thinking I was talking to Russell T Davies or whatever, And that was like huge for me. And that was when I started at the BBC about 5 years ago now on a production apprenticeship. And my first job for a year was working on that BBC YouTube channel. It was really strangely full circle for me. And that was really nice. So that was, so I packed up and moved to London at 18. Got that job, which I was extremely fortunate to do. I think apprenticeships are very important in that regard. And it was there was a certain flexibility to it, because I was primarily working on that YouTube channel, and that's mainly content creation, dealing with trailers and clips and whatnot of all the shows. But because of the apprenticeship, there was a certain amount of, I could kind of do not whatever I wanted, because that's although most of the time that may have been the case. I used to play with lightsabers in the office. I was not that professional, but there was a certain sense of people would give you a lot of opportunities in Apprentice if you really had your sights set on something, or you had ideas and you really had your heart in it. So I started to spend quite a bit of time with BBC Three, because they were in the same building as us, or just in a slightly separate part of the building. And that's just talking to people. I always say this to like anyone who's new to the organization, or just new to media in general, like just speak to people, just reach out to them. Like everyone is like, just talk. Like you'll be amazed by how receptive people are. And I'm sure you found this with getting podcast guests. You're like, like as soon as you'll be like, well, you never know unless you try. So that was very much my ethos when I started going about that. And I ended up doing a few things for BBC Three and making a few like comedy shorts and doing one of their things not to say about autism, because I'm on the autistic spectrum. I've got Asperger's. And then that kind of, so at the same time as that, my mentor, Cheryl Varley, who's a total legend, she ran another YouTube channel called BBC Raw. And I'd already made a film for that about autism, about working in an office. And I saw The A Word was coming out. And I noticed it had Christopher Eccleston in it. And immediately the connection was made in my head. Well, it's like autism, check. Doctor Who, Christopher Eccleston, check. So once again, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I literally said to Cheryl, I've got this really good idea. I'd love to go and interview Christopher Eccleston, please. And I think it would make a really nice film. So then she took that to various bigwigs. She did that hard work for me, and then the production company behind that A Word. And they were really receptive to the idea, fortunately. And we had, I remember as well, like it wasn't just as simple then as like going up and doing an interview, like there was thought behind it. I met with some really interesting people who had worked on some really good shows. And I kind of got an insight into storytelling at that point. Because up till then I'd done the digital side of things. I'd done YouTube. I knew how to do stuff for the internet. That was like my forte. But then it was like, how do we make this interview a story? How do we actually tell something that people will connect with more than just tell me about the A Word? So that was very much the approach we went, and I kind of put a bit of myself in the film as well. But yeah, then I got to go up to Manchester and sit down and chat to Christopher Eccleston, which was a absolutely surreal, mind-bending experience. And I was in, I've never really said this, but I was in a pretty rough place at the time as well. Like I'd been in London about 6 months, and my nan had literally died like maybe a week before that interview. And there was I don't know, like I've probably mentioned my nan and granddad's house quite a couple of times on this podcast. But that really was like a very safe, happy, cherished childhood place for me. And then inevitably Doctor Who spilled into that. And I'd sit on the floor drawing Daleks and stuff, And by that point then, so my nana died, they were both gone. And I was like on my own 2 feet as an adult. I was about to interview Christopher Eccleston. It felt kind of full circle, but it also, I don't know, I really wanted to grasp that opportunity and just
of course,
not let a single ounce of that go to waste. It felt important to me. It really did feel extremely important that I give it my all. And he was a total legend. That's what made it. But I think ultimately I can give you all of this hype and the beautiful backstory, and much like how I was excited about the Doctor Who trailers in 2005, but it always comes down to the meat of it. How will it actually go? Will Doctor Who be shit? Will Christopher Eccleston be nice? And he was. He they say never meet your heroes, but he was the loveliest man. And we really connected, but he was really generous as well. He really was very open and very engaged, and also really generous with his time, because we were literally filming on the set of the A Word, and then we went off into a little room and he walked down the corridor and I was like, oh, there he is. and obviously they're in between takes and whatnot. And we got about halfway into the interview, just before kind of the emotional stuff came up, and the producer says, "All right, we run out of time now." And he kind of very sternly, in his Christopher Eccleston way, went, "No, you've got as long as you need." And he was a very, very nice, warm man. Like I can't hype him up enough.
No.
And yeah, it was obviously, I think it was emotional for the both of us, because I think if you watch interviews back in 2005 when he was being talking about the role, I think he very much took that part because he wanted to play the children. He wanted to tackle that area that he'd not done. And I think it was, and I'm sure I cannot be the only example of this, especially now he's been to conventions and stuff. But I think to hear the story of he did connect with kids, and that role, the reason he did that role actually paid off. I think that's got to be a satisfying thing as an actor. So yeah, it was. Yeah, mm-hmm. I mean, I could talk about it for hours.
Well, it's great, because I was gonna. I'm glad that you got onto it, because I was gonna bring it up anyway, because I've watched those interviews a couple of times, and I watched them when we first started talking about you coming on the podcast, which mm-hmm. was quite a while ago now, and then I rewatched them today. Every single time I've watched those interviews, I've got very teary, because they are, you can, everything that you've said there about how emotional it was for you and for Chris, like you can feel all of that, and it's beautifully edited as well. Like the whole video is so beautifully cut, because there's a lot of clips of you very nervously, on your way to meet him, like interspiced in between, which is really sweet. But yeah, I urge everyone to go and watch it. It's a lovely interview, as a fan of it, because I'm a big fan of the A Word as well. I watched the first series and loved it. And Chris is great in it, so I loved all of you talking about that as well. Yeah, amazing interviees, and then you did it again.
Thank you.
Did it again as well.
You got exactly.
Interview in as well.
It's pretty. Once again, I think by that point I was fortunate enough to kind of know the production team behind the show and Chris's publicist. And it was once again, it wasn't just like it just materialized. It was once again pushing for it, being aware Series 2 was coming out, and making the cogs turn and making it happen. Mm-hmm. And literally, it's funny because that was for BBC One this time round rather than BBC Raw, and that was mainly for their socials, for Twitter, Facebook, and then also the YouTube channel, which was funny. And then did a video for the YouTube channel, so I was very happy about. But it I had to organize the camera for that. I had to do. The thing about, I think the big misconception with the BBC is it's like this very slick machine where it's all very neatly controlled, but in actual fact, I think a lot of the time you're having to take what's there and what's available to you and slot it together and make it work for yourself. But yeah, I was really, really pleased I got to do that second interview. I was having a bit of an identity crisis at the time, because at that point then I'd moved on from the YouTube channel, and I was working at news for this Team BBC Stories. And I was trying to become a journalist. This was the thing. I'd got this job at news, and I'd done that interview and stuff. And I thought, I want to be a proper cool journalist. And I don't, I kind of very much fell into the trappings of what a traditional BBC News journalist should be. And it completely, I stopped being myself, really. And I watched that second interview, and I'm still really proud of it. But I see some of the questions, some of the way I operate completely it's just so different to that first interview where I was still my kind of sweet summer child self, who's just very much me. And then there's that, but like there was like a question, there's like a couple of questions in there that I learned from the journalism course or whatever, and it just, I don't know, but I'm still very happy about it, and I still would very, very much like to do a third one, because I think it would kind of bookend it as a trilogy. I feel like you've got that first act where it's all very exciting and there's a childhood naivety to it. I don't know. It's just lovely. Second act where I'm trying to be this adult and trying to work out who I am. And I feel like this third act will I don't know, sum things up and do something nice and clever. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if that happens, if that materializes.
That would be lovely. But yeah, please, I urge everyone to go and watch those interviews because they're great. And like you said, you can see that Chris is a legend and he's just such a nice fella. I had the immense privilege of seeing him. They did an event for, I live in Norwich, and they had Norwich Film Festival. They had an event for Shallow Grave, the Danny Boyle film that he was in. And then they had a Q&A afterwards. So we'd watch the film, and then he came out, and I was like, it was the first time I'd seen a doctor in person. And I was just, I lost my mind. I think I've told the story previously where I was about 30 seconds away from meeting him and missed him, which breaks my heart.
Oh no.
It's because at that time as well, it's like Chris wasn't doing conventions, and it's like, when does the chance to meet Christopher Eccleston come up? It breaks my heart to this day still.
Well, there's still plenty of opportunity. And the fact now he's so engaged with it and loves the fans, I think it gives you that a bit of rejuvenated spot, because like you said, at the time you're almost like, I'm never going to get this chance again. I think like today of all days, as we record this, the Big Finish trailer came out.
I was just about to mention it. Yeah.
See, I'm ahead of you now. It's my podcast now, John. That trailer brought a tear to my eye. It really did, to hear his voice again. I've got this kind of theory, which is, we kind of accepted, I think, collectively, that he'd never come back to the role. I think maybe he'd do conventions or whatever, but I think we kind of collectively grieved the Ninth Doctor. I think we really did. I think Tennant, Smith, Capaldi, there's all a good chance of them coming back. I think there was a certain openness to it, and it seemed like a real possibility, especially, and the classic Doctors as well. But I don't know. The Ninth Doctor felt like a real closed door. So the fact now you're hearing this character's voice again, it feels like someone you love's come back to life. I can't describe it. Yeah,
well, I said, my girlfriend, that everyone knows, she's not a massive Doctor Who fan, but she would say that her favourite Doctor is Chris, from what she's seen. She's a woman of taste, but she, when I put the trailer on and I went, oh my God, Chris is back. Trailer. Oh my God. Drop everything. And even her face just lit up. And I said to her, I was like, it's not that because part of me has been worried. I don't know why. This is probably silly, but just I was worried about hearing him do Big Finish, and worried about hearing a man like begrudgingly doing Doctor Who. That's what I was worried about. Yes. I was worried about hearing him and being like, not that I would ever accuse him of like phoning it in, because he's like one of the greatest actors this country's ever known, but like sort of doing it and just something being missing. But it's the fact that he sat, you can hear his excitement to be back in his voice. Yeah,
totally.
Oh, it's just so great to hear. And there's a couple of lines in it. Obviously, when he said "fantastic" at the end, I'd lost my mind. Yeah. But yeah, there's just a couple of lines in it that sort of mirror things that he said in series 1, and I just
To hear him say new things as well is exciting to me. But I think that the enthusiasm that we're hearing there, there's definitely no surprise about this. I think when he did his because I keep going back to his interviews in 2005 or after. Actually, I think this is more later on when he reflects on it. But he says like, "I wish I got the comedy right." You know, he reflects on the bits of the performance he feels he didn't quite nail, which I would disagree with. I think he was perfect.
I agree,
but I think you see this in the big finish. He's clearly, worked with Nicholas Briggs, who wrote it or whatever, to really make sure he had a great shot at the comedy. And that comes through in the trailer already, I think. I think we're going to really see an evolved Ninth Doctor. It'll still be the Ninth Doctor we know and love, I hope. But I think we're going to see an extra level to him. And he's going to try new stuff out, which is brilliant because it means it's the opposite of phoning it in. It's gonna. I think he really wants this crack at it, and I think it's to. I don't know. I can't read his mind, but I think he's doing it for the fans. I think he really recognizes how big a deal this is to people. I think I agree. He totally wants to do it right.
I think, and just when I heard him today, obviously I don't know if he ever would, but I've always thought that out of all of the doctors, probably even some of the doctors that are sadly now no longer with us were more likely to come back recast than Christopher Eccleston was to come back in the show for a multi-doctor special. And now I think maybe he'd do it.
I think anything's possible. I know he worked with Jodie, didn't he, in a play. I'm still kind of doubtful. I reckon it's a different beast working with the BBC and working with BBC One, and that kind of chain of command. I think Big Finish is feels like a kind of like almost, and it's not, but it feels like a family-run business. It feels there's a wholesome community vibe to that, whereas the BBC is this other beast. But I think it's a matter of time, perhaps, and when I say a matter of time, I mean maybe decades. I think he keeps joking he'll come back for the 75th or the 100th anniversary as an extremely old man, but I don't know. I think this is a Doctor Who fan thing, right? I'm sure, where I've kind of got an episode in mind. Like if I were to do it, if I were to bring him back as an 80-year-old Christopher Eccleston, I know exactly what I'd do for that story.
Agreed.
I think that's the great thing about being a Doctor Who fan. You have the idea of what your version of the show would be in your head, I think, right? You kind of know this sort of rough outline of who your Doctor would be.
I think everyone's got at least like 3 series written in their own heads, which is so cool.
Definitely.
Well, we're going to take a very short break here, and when we come back, we've got the first of our many features, and we're going to slide on over to the shelf and see what's going to be added to the DVD collection this week.
I hardly think it will be a surprise, frankly, what I'm going to choose.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you had a lovely break. We're back.
We're back,
people. And it's that time. You know what time it is.
Hey.
It's DVD collection time.
Woohoo!
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I'll prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
Woohoo! So, as always, I have no idea what you're going to pick, which always worries me, in case I have nothing to say about the episode, which has happened before. but I'm sure that I will, and I'm going to hand it over to you. What are you selecting to enter the esteemed DVD collection?
I think it comes as no surprise, especially from the past hour of conversation here. But I am picking specifically, I guess, one episode of a two-parter. But if you want to include both, that's fine. But
We'll put both in. Let's stick both
brilliant.
in. Why not?
Okay, then it is. Drum roll, please. The Empty Child, The Doctor Dances.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Top 5 episode of all time for me. So I'm making an executive decision. Both are going in.
Excellent.
So which one were you specifically nailing in on? The Empty Child or
The Doctor Dances?
The Doctor Dances.
We could do a whole podcast episode on The Doctor Dances, Josh. It's just fun. It's just everything I love about Doctor Who to me. There's just so much brilliance in it. I immediately, what springs to mind as like the highlight is that ending. Everybody lives, where that the solution's really cool, and that's like a testament to Stephen Moffat's writing. Like it's one really satisfying conclusion, and how it all works out, how the pieces of the story come together. But then you see that joy after the build-up of Eccleston's kind of grief and losing the Time Lords and all that, the failure and the misery, to have that grin on his face when he saves the child and then he realizes it's a happy ending. Everybody lives. There's it's just goosebumps to me. How perfect that is.
It's an incredible moment. And it's one of the reasons why people listening to the show will know that it's part of the Corridor of Fame theme tune that will be coming later on in the show, is that clip. So it's part of it's obviously my favorite. It's one of my favorite Doctor Who moments of all time. And sometimes you get those moments and they're tacked on to pretty average stories or okay stories or pretty decent stories, but it just so happens that the rest of The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances is absolutely flawless, in my opinion.
It truly, truly is. I think I have a theory about this, in a sense, like we kind of touched upon it with every Doctor Who fan has their dream series, their dream Doctor. And I think as it's Stephen Moffat's first, I can't help but think like he poured everything into that. He probably had certain ideas and concepts that had been buzzing around his head for that episode for years, maybe decades. I don't know, but it feels like such a love letter to Doctor Who and to also that series one, the way that series went. It's just everything about it. I mean, it's terrifying. It's like
it's balls to the wall. Doctor Who. That's what it is.
It hits all those notes. It was the first time Doctor Who scared me. I think that's got to be the same for a lot of people. Like,
agreed. Completely agree.
It's petrified. There's something about gas masks anyway, which are freaky. But then to add "Are You My Mummy" onto it, it's like a stroke of genius in terms of freakiness. But the Eccleston handles that episode so well. So it's no one here but us chickens. There's just so many great little.
This is. I said like sometimes there's episodes that I just don't really have a lot to say. Now I'm worried because I just have too much to say. There's so much to talk about here. From just like the Empty Child is just iconic moment after iconic moment after iconic moment, because you've got, the whole sequence with that you referenced there, like with Nancy and the kids and the Doctor eating the dinner. Amazing sequence. That's probably Eccleston at his funniest for me. And then you go to the child come in and it's terrifying. Nancy's just an incredible character. God,
that whole episode lives and breathes. It's so organic. It feels really natural. Like the characters of the kids and everything, it feels really authentic and genuine. And then of course you go from Rose hanging off a barrage balloon, and then all of a sudden we're introduced to Captain Jack, who would have guessed he'd still be in the show now? Like he was in the last episode of the last one that's been on TV. Like he's a. It's a really cool setup for Jack because it's so neatly introduces this character who is just such a con man and such a, he's a bit of a smarmy git at times, he's kind of got that charm, but it works so well. And he obviously gets his nice redemption at the end, and he's almost about to die, and then the TARDIS appears, which is just perfect.
Jack's one of my all-time favorite Doctor Who characters. I think I've referred to him before as the Brigadier of New Who. He's he's that kind of character who is just, you can slot into any era and always works. And I'm sure that in 20 years' time we'll be talking about John Barrowman putting the coat back on again to step onto the TARDIS with the 22nd Doctor.
I hope so.
And he'll still be coming back to the role.
And he loves it. He loves Doctor Who as well, and that shines through. I think when it's the same, especially I think the reason David Tennant's so beloved, and I suppose Capaldi as well. It's the love of the show in the same way we can talk about it forever here on this podcast. They are pouring in that enthusiasm and that passion for it, and they're just they know the notes to hit that work with the tone. They are just boom, 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 perfect. Barrowman is a continual legend at every level.
Yeah. Another moment that I just want to touch on as well, probably for me, probably is definitely in my top 5 scariest moments ever on Doctor Who that to this day terrify me, is Dr. Constantine changing.
God,
oh my God!
That effect,
where it comes out of his mouth, and when his eyes expand. Oh, it's horrific.
I'm surprised it got put on at 7 o'clock on kids' TV. It's terrifying, isn't it?
It's insane. It's a testament to what Doctor Who can get away with, and it's the first time that Doctor Who it pushed a few boundaries already with sexualization and things like that, a few moments in episodes and a bit of darkness, obviously, with I always point to Chris telling the Dalek to kill itself in Dalek, really dark moment, but it's the first time that it's terrifying. It's the first time we got horror in New Who,
body horror as well, that grim transformation. It's just the way he delivers the line as well is so perfect. He's got, "Are you my mum, me?" It feels like he's throwing up. You hear it, and then it comes out the mouth. It's just perfectly delivered, perfectly. They just pulled every element off so well, just perfect.
Yeah, I think that it's if it hadn't have gone in the DVD collection at this point, I think I would have forcibly entered it myself at some point. So I'm so glad it's here.
What
a pick!
Yeah,
I just can't stop thinking about it now.
You'll have to go and watch it after this recording.
I probably will.
I'm gonna go and watch Rose. I'm gonna watch Rose and feel all nostalgic. But I think as well, what cannot be understated is the director of that episode. It's James Hawes. Absolutely brought out the best in Christopher Eccleston, and he really nailed the look of World War II and really made that script come alive.
Yeah.
And there's an interview with Eccleston where he literally more or less says, if he'd have directed my first episodes or the whole of series 1, I'd have done more. I'd have done a series 2. He just knows exactly what buttons to press and what to get out of him. It's just, it's
Yeah, it's a
he's a
beautiful
bit of
looking
a
episode as well. Yeah,
he
out
doesn't
of
get
that
enough
series.
credit.
Yeah, he definitely should get credit.
I don't think the directors of Who do get that much credit, though. I find. I think there's so much emphasis on the writers, which I think is a thing in British telly, I suppose. But like, it wasn't really until like Rachel Talalay. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm rubbish with names.
Yeah, no, I think you are. Yeah.
It wasn't until she came along where I think there was a real focus on and I think rightly so, because her directing was absolutely spectacular. But I don't know. There's been so many brilliant directors of Doctor Who, you know, that have now gone on to do great stuff. You know, Star Wars and all kinds. Yeah, I think they need more credit. But it's not someone I've picked for the Corridor of Fame. I've not picked a director, so I'm talking nonsense. I'm a hypocrite.
Looking at the Corridor of Fame, let me just get the list up, because I mean, so far one director. We've had one director in, which is Graham Harper.
Oh, what a legend. Who's an actual doctor himself, right?
Yes,
canonically.
The Morbius doc. But yeah, Graham Harper is the only one in there. But yeah, like when you say that, I think of, I mean, just New Who alone, like Eros Lynn and you know, Douglas McKinnon, who's been on the podcast. Some incredible directors. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think directors get the credit they deserve. That was a lovely little tangent. But I mean, it's probably good that it's stopped us from just rambling on about the Empty Child and the Doctor Dances.
More Empty Child.
I think. I mean, I'm one of these people who can never pick a favourite Doctor Who episode, but it's. And I won't reveal what the other one is, just in case because it would probably be my number one DVD collection entry. So I don't want to reveal it.
You want to save that?
Yeah, if I ever get the chance, because I've entered one, but I was very much a tribute to Katie Manning. But yeah, I've got one that I would enter, and it's always between those two. Yeah, it's this episode that I'm talking about, and The Empty Child, the Doctor's Dances. It's always up there.
I think so.
I'm so happy it's in. So happy.
There is the nostalgia to it, which I think applies to a lot of those earlier seasons. But then it's like you watch it today and you show anyone that today, and it just holds up so well. It's
definitely. Well, I've mentioned Jess on the podcast a lot. My girlfriend, my long suffering. She hates sci-fi. She doesn't really like Doctor Who, but there's even nights where she says to me, like, "Oh, I'm actually up for watching a bit of Doctor Who," and I'll go, "What do you want to watch?" And usually the answer is, "I want something scary, so put The Empty Child on." She always wants that one. There's a few others that she likes as well, but she always loves the scarier episodes that I show her. And that's definitely always near the top.
How involved was she with your BritBox marathon of the classic?
She would walk in and get the odd glimpse, and it would always be at the worst moment, like the wobbliest sets or the worst bit of bubble wrap on a hand or something. She'd always, like, she'd never walk in halfway through Genesis of the Daleks and get hooked. She'd always walk in like halfway through Underworld and it's just drab, and she'd go, "What the fuck is this?" Okay, Doctor Who.
Amazing. You have to kind of almost defend it, like, "Oh no, you don't get it. You don't. You don't. Wrong moment. You know."
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would now. I mean, maybe for the YouTube channel or for the podcast, maybe I'll get her to watch a classic Doctor Who episode one day, because I think that would be hilarious.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think Ben Cook had a lot of fun with us on the Time Team, because there was such a varied selection of us who had seen who had sometimes seen the episodes he was showing us and sometimes hadn't, and like you could see his eyes kind of light up when certain moments would happen. And there's nothing better than showing someone Doctor Who than they've not seen it and then not been exposed to how crazy it can be, or how surprising it is. It's a very unique feeling.
It really is. I love it. Well, it's in. The Empty Child, the Doctor Dances. It's in the DVD collection. Wonderful pick. Amazing pick. Probably my favourite so far. Yes, always deliver. And someone else who always delivers is our listeners, and they always deliver via Twitter. Oh, this is a tenuous link.
I love it. It's great. You'll be on Radio 2 in no time.
And speaking of Twitter, we're now going to go over to bloody Twitter.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
So, bloody Twitter.
Bloody Twitter.
Yes.
My terrible Scottish accent.
It's wonderful. Good. You nailed it. So we've got some questions. We've got a stack of questions. Some of them, the people who listen to this podcast, I cannot be held responsible for how peculiar they are. There's some strange people and there's some strange questions, but I hope you enjoy them.
I invite the strange. The stranger, the better.
Well, question number 1 from friend of the show, Danny at Danny Sorrell 3 on Twitter. Quite a simple one. What's your favourite Christmas special?
Oh, that's a great question. Voyage of the Damned. It may be an odd choice. I don't know. But
it's the blockbuster choice. Yeah, I
love it. I think it's just, it might not be the most typical episode of Doctor Who, or maybe even the most typical Christmas special, but it's Doctor Who proven its worth in that Christmas Day slot at that time, getting that many viewers in, like getting Kylie Minogue as a guest is ludicrous. It's ludicrous, but it's on the Titanic in space. It's insane, but it's just hitting every note, firing those cylinders off, and I don't know. To me, I remember watching that as a kid and being just impressed, just being like, Doctor Who is cool. It's
a big episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like whether I mean, it could be debated. I like it, but I know some people don't like it. But it's big. It goes for it. It goes gung ho, doesn't it? And
totally.
It's probably, other than the 50th, like the closest we've had to like a Doctor Who film. Like, it's long and it's just epic. Oh, yeah, I love it. I love all of the Christmas specials. They're always my go-to comfort episodes. Yeah, I love them. Husband's a River Song for me is such a comfort episode. I love that episode so much.
Yeah, that's a really sweet. I think this is another side effect of being a massive fan nerd, but you remember where you are when you watch them, don't you? Like, definitely. Each one, it's not just the episode, it's the emotional connection to that time, where you were, how you felt, who you were with, and especially at Christmas, that's a massive one. And the second you say the name, like Husband's a River Song, I'm thinking, it takes me back to that place in my life. Voyage of the Damned, I'm at my nan and granddad's again, that's what I was agreeing.
I'm remembering the Christmas Invasion, and sitting on the floor at my auntie and uncle's house, and my auntie wasn't a massive Doctor Who fan, but her sister was, and we were the only two people in the house who liked Doctor Who, but my auntie was she knew how much I loved it, and she was like, right, evacuate the room, everybody. No one is allowed in, and no one's allowed to mention Doctor Who. No one's allowed to slag Doctor Who off. Josh wants to watch Doctor Who. He's going to have his 45 minutes and watch Doctor Who. So it was just me pretty much on my own with my new Nintendo DS. Oh, those were the times.
Honestly, yeah, I remember like family would talk over stuff now and again, especially like Christmas, But I remember literally like telling my granddad off during Voyage of the Damned. It's like there's a certain collective consciousness which is like, no, this is important. This is
yes, yeah. Well, next question is from Jake at 10,000 Hawks.
Oh yes, Jake's gonna deliver the goods, I'm sure.
Okay, so Jake has asked if this is a strange question, but I like it. If Donna had to move to somewhere other than Leeds in Turn Left, where would you have wanted her to move?
This is like a weird. It's not even an in joke. I don't know. It's what we watched Turn Left, and it's like this total just Leeds every time. Leeds, you're sending me to Leeds. And recently as well, it was announced bizarrely that the BBC News are moving some of my team's jobs to Leeds, and I immediately, throughout all of the quite serious connotations of that, the only thing that played in my head was Leeds. I'm not going to Leeds. Like, it's ridiculous. Where would I want Donna to have gone? I mean, I'm trying to take into account that the southeast of England is flooded with radiation, so I've got to try and think of somewhere suitable. It's got to be Birmingham. Birmingham is the least represented place in Doctor Who, in my opinion. It's never they never go to Birmingham. I want to see an episode I want to see Donna walking around a destroyed bull ring or something, right?
Yeah. Well, I've been tweeting recently because I have my own opinion on what's the most underrepresented place, and it's where I'm currently living, which is Norwich.
Norwich, yeah.
I'd have Donna in Norwich. Why not? Or like the Scottish Highlands. That would be funny. Yeah. Like
Donna
that.
doing a Skyfall. She's gonna.
Yeah, I'd like that. Jamie at Jamie_season7. He's always in the bloody Twitter section. He's here every week. And he's asked, what's your favourite series of the show? So what is your favourite individual season?
Well, I think we should just take series 1 as read. Like, that's going to be, because it sits in mythical status. But if we're going to, so let's like this, okay, series 1 is there. I think other than that, just so there's like perhaps a more interesting answer to your listeners, I would probably have to say series 4. I think series 4 is the show running on all cylinders.
We are so alike.
We're soulmates. We're Doctor Who soulmates.
We are vibing here because that's exactly what was going through my head. I was like, is it 3 or 4? I was like, probably 4 edges it, then
literally
3.
That was literally my thought process because I was close to 3. 4 is just perfect. Like, they know how to run that show at that point. They've got it down. It's slick. And then you've got David Tennant, who's just the Doctor at that point, so in that role. And then, of course, who comes along but Catherine Tate? And there's no better duo, in my opinion, than the Doctor and Donna. It works perfectly. She is the perfect companion. And the way she humanizes him and the way she brings him, she keeps him on that human level. She keeps him grounded. It's just the Fires of Pompeii. What a beautiful episode.
Yeah. There's been a lot of Donna love on Twitter recently because obviously everyone thought she was coming back, which I didn't think was actually going to happen. I mean, maybe, who knows? It'd be strange. It'd be a strange time to bring her back, but I'd be down for it. I'd be
very pleased, but I think she's, of all the companions, she's kind of the hardest one to bring back, isn't she?
Definitely.
Like, if she remembers the Doctor, her head explodes. So
yeah, I think Martha, you could bring her back tomorrow. She slots in perfect, especially with this era. I think she'd be great.
I'm actually more inclined to say, like, leave Donna's chapter closed because it was so perfect. Martha and Mickey, however, I have a thirst for their married adventures fighting aliens. Bring those two back. Yeah. Bring them back in their combat gear with their cool guns. I want to see that. I'm
down for that. I'm definitely down for that. Next question. Another friend of the show, Peter at Dalecium. absolute genius.
I listen to his About Time rendition when I go for walks, and I feel like the Doctor.
He's incredible. I always big him up on here. I hope you're okay with that, Peter. But yeah, I genuinely think you're a genius. He's asked 2 questions on brand as always. What's your favourite version of the Doctor Who theme tune?
It's a very good question. I'd almost be inclined to say the series 4 theme, because it's kind of got that rock vibe. It's a very close second, but I think the original theme captures everything about the mandate for that show. It's kind of scary, it's exciting, it's got a really specific sound from that time, it's just perfect. The original theme, can't beat it. When they played it in Day of the Doctor, goosebumps. Perfect.
Yeah, completely agree. Another one, the David Arnold Big Finish 8th Doctor theme for me. I'm loving that at the minute. It's so beefy. It's just I just, every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh yes, Doctor Who.
I love the War Master theme as well in Big Finish. That was a treat. I was really happy when I heard that. That was great.
Peter's version of the War Master theme as well is unreal. He's asked another question actually as well, which is, I imagine I know the answer to part 1 of this. Would you ever want to work directly within the Doctor Who team? And if so, what would your ideal role be?
This is a 2-pronged answer, because there's the dream universe, which is perhaps unrealistic, and then there's the realistic universe. So the realistic universe, yeah, sure. I love the BBC. I love my job at the moment, but I think, if anything were ever going to steal me away from it, it would be Doctor Who. What would I do? I don't know. I'm kind of, at the moment, I'm very much, as I said earlier about, I was trying to be a journalist and it kind of didn't make me happy. I'm leaning into art now, which is like my thing. I've always loved art, and I'm currently doing a lot more graphic design, GFX, animation, that kind of stuff at work. We do that for documentaries, go out on BBC Three and iPlayer. Sure, I'd love to do that kind of stuff for the social media or whatever. I don't think it would really apply to the show itself, but go on BBC Studios, just headhunt me. Why don't you? But I don't know. The dream, of course, and it's a total joke because I haven't written a script in years, really. But like we were saying, we all have our dream series in our head. I have what I would consider, and maybe I'm quite biased because it's mine, a really solid arc for my Doctor and my show. I would just love, exactly right. Yeah. We all think we know what's best, and then inevitably we'll write it and it'll go out and all the fans will go, but maybe I need to start writing more scripts and go on some script courses or something, because I just would love to take what I think is a really good idea and bring it to life.
I would love to see a Groves Doctor Who script. I'd love that. I'd love to see it.
Maybe I'll start writing letters to Nicholas Briggs. I'll be like, get a Big Finish done, I know I've not written a script. I have no official writing experience in my entire life and career, but please, I have this handwritten in A4 paper. I've sent it to you. Can you make it?
Well, I got I got a signature from Nicholas Briggs for doing the same thing, and unfortunately, it was on a restraining order. But Briggs, if you want me, you know where I am.
Oh, man, we've got to give him a lot of love, there, haven't we? He's
love Briggsy, Briggsy.
Yeah, it's incredible what he's done at Big Finish. He's really
on top of being the Daleks.
Yeah, exactly right. I actually there was a Doctor Who festival at the Excel Centre a while back, sort of early on in my BBC career, and I got I applied. It's like volunteering. I've applied to do it, and I got told I was going to look after talent. And my heart stopped because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to chaperone Peter Capaldi or Jenna Coleman. And I got given Nicholas Briggs. And I am so happy. Cool. I'm so happy now, that I got to spend the weekend walking around with him. It was, that was a real treat. Because it's, because he's not Peter Capaldi, you could actually talk to him. And he was very cool. Very, very cool man.
I bet he is. I bet. Can't wait. Fingers crossed. One day I'll be able to get Nick Briggs on the podcast, which would be incredible.
That's it. You've got to. That's it. We're calling it now. We're calling it.
I'm going to be that really uncool guy who's like, "Will you bring your ring modulator with you?" And we'll just we'll reenact some scenes. And
can you do like one episode of the podcast with just Dalek Khan in character, something like that?
That'd be incredible. If I was going to pick a Dalek, it'd be Dalek Khan. That would be great.
My idea, my entry for the corridor of fame, it came through all of time, it burned. Yes.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Next question is from Tom Bowen at Theta Sigma 2017. He said, "Hi, Gerard. Really like your stuff.
Thank you.
As someone with autism myself, I'd love to know what you think it is about Doctor Who that draws in so many autistic fans. It's a side of the fandom that I don't think gets talked about enough, considering how expansive it is." So what are your thoughts there?
Huge question. This is a
big question.
This is another entire episode worthy question. This is and something I've put a lot of thought into, an awful lot of thought into. But to give it another two-pronged summary, I would say it's probably one. I think what we touched upon earlier with that mythology. The fact. I think what if I put myself in the headspace of that child who got drawn into it, it was the fact that there was so much detail and history and facts and this whole encyclopedia of stuff that I could access and that built upon this story. I think there's a lot to be said for that, because I think as not to generalize, but I think people on the spectrum love to get their teeth into something and learn everything and find out all the details and live and breathe that. And I think there's definitely a lot to be said to that. But I think as well, and I said this because we did Love and Monsters in the Time team, and the point I made, because we touched upon autism in that, so we were just talking about the fandom in general, and the point I made, I think, and obviously this isn't unique to people on the spectrum or anything, but I think there was a huge relatability to the Doctor in terms of, not necessarily saying he is on the or they are on the spectrum, but there's certain elements to that character, that set of characteristics, the way they are, the way they operate, which I think it can be hugely relatable. And the point I made at the time was really, as a kid who would, even then I would self-identify as weird and a bit strange, a bit, not that typical as a child. There was this character who was also very weird. They were intelligent and they were, they had moral compass and they were quick and witty and amazing, but there was also that alienness to them. And I don't know, I found that hugely relatable. It felt like I really could be the Doctor. I perhaps relate less so to, Luke Skywalker or any other massive character in that vein. It felt like the Doctor really could be me. I could open a fob watch one day and find out this whole personality's been a ruse. I think that's the two very brief kickers, I would say, that spring to mind. But I could write a book about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the foundation of the show is, like for someone like myself, like I'm not on the spectrum, but I was always deemed to be a weird kid. And it's sort of people who in real life are treated like outsiders and or treated differently, it's a really warm welcome home for people like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I've always felt. So I completely agree. I completely get where you're coming from there.
I think there's a lot to be said for Doctor Who being a sort of safe space for people on the fringes. I think, right? You know, it's exceptionally welcoming and safe, and there's just take, obviously with the exception of some pricks on Twitter who will just forever cause trouble, but we'll ignore them. There's a great community in Twitter, and that's a snapshot of that. It's like it extends beyond the show itself into the people that love it, and it's welcoming of everyone. Yeah, it's a unique.
Well, in a
thing.
sentence, you've summed up the point of the podcast. So that's
there we go.
Perfect. That's what this podcast is about, or this community, and how amazing all these people in it are, and like people like you.
Thank you.
And well, we'll go back to the questions. We've got a few more to go through. Probably some quick fire ones. At Oscar Grouchos has asked 2 questions. What was your pinch yourself moment relating to Doctor Who so far? What has been your pinch yourself moment? Obviously, I know I imagine that meeting Chris was probably up there.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I think once again, it's almost like we have to start taking these things as read, because otherwise my answers are going to get really repetitive and boring. That's definitely the pinch yourself moment. But the other one for me was the Time Team. That was was really huge to me as a kid. I'd read Doctor Who magazine. I'd be able to afford it, or I'd read it in W.H. Smith's. But the bit I would go to always was the Time Team. That was the bit that fascinated me. And I think obviously back then when they were doing it, they went through every episode. And again, that plays into the mythology, that knowing there's this rich history. But I just loved it as well. There's something about that format that I think really appeals to especially younger readers as well. It's a quite inclusive format. So yeah, seeing myself in the magazine was a really surreal moment. That felt like, Christ, like what the hell? What am I doing? It's hard to wrap your head around. Yeah, and especially when it's such a minute thing really in like reality. But when we did our final one with Katie Manning, and in the very top left corner, it's very, very small, but I'm on the cover with Katie Manning. And that to me is like, Christ, it's a very little thing, in the grand scheme of things. But when you love something as a kid, and it's that important to you.
Yeah. Well, this seems to be an ongoing theme with you, is that you do seem to come full circle a lot, which is really cool. You started with Chris, and then you interviewed Chris, and then you started, your first YouTube video was going to the BBC YouTube channel, and then you're making a video with a doctor on that channel. Like it's cool seeing you come full circle like that.
I think
we often get stories like that on the podcast, which are always great.
It's beautiful. The doctor says it, says it himself, doesn't he? What's the point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes? I think we all have that inner child in us. We all have that beautiful piece of ourselves from when we were younger that engaged and loved this magical show. And I think as fans, we cling on to that. If you discovered it younger, obviously it's fantastic. People find the show and they're, at all ages. But when, I don't know, there's just something beautiful about grasping that tight and applying it to your adult life. I don't know. I naturally breeds full circle type things, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And to go to a completely different point, Oscar Grouchos has also asked, he's put, perhaps more importantly, a running theme with Oscar Grouchos that I've noticed on Twitter is he has an obsession with a couple of things. Last week we mentioned it, where he has a deep obsession with Gordon Tipple, the one-time master from the beginning of the TV movie. Another one of Oscar Groucho's obsessions. He said, "Is it within your power to render the Leakley Bible canonical?" I don't know if you're aware of the Leakley Bible.
I am. I recently came across this, and it fascinated the hell out of me.
It's so fascinating.
It's a real what could have been, isn't it? Like,
yeah, and it's a what could have been. That you read it and you think, thank God.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's as fascinating as it is to read now. Thank Christ it didn't happen, because one, it doesn't really it doesn't sound that consistent with the show or what you really want from the show. But also, if it happened, we wouldn't have got the RTD 2005 reboot as we know it. So yeah, thank Christ. But it's one of those where I'd love to read some scripts. I don't even know if scripts exist in that much of a capacity. I'd love for Big Finish to do a non-canonical series.
They've got Paul.
Yeah, exactly, right. And Eric Roberts.
Oh, if they did a Leakley Bible Big Finish adaptation, the Lost Stories.
Yeah,
the Leakley Bible.
Get those weird spider Daleks that hover about. You know, I mean,
yeah, the Cybes, the pirate Cybermen.
Get in. What was it? And they have Barusa was like playing a huge role in that as well, wasn't he? Also, there's a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah,
but is it with it? What was the question? Is it within my power to render that canon?
Yes. Yeah,
absolutely not. That's the answer. It's far without anyone's
power. I think you need to accept Oscar Groucho's. I think, though we all love the Leakley Bible, I think it's time that we. Oh no, fuck it. Yeah, it's canon.
I want maybe in that fantastical dream future where I get to write the show, we'll visit an alternate universe and we'll see an alternate Paul McGann who inhabits that set of storylines, and it's very very uncomfortable.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. And our final question, when I mentioned weird questions, here we are. Sam at Cyberplanner1, incredible artist.
Yes.
If you haven't checked him out, but he's asked, do you secretly hate Venice and wish that it would sink into the sea where it belongs?
I have no idea if that's a reference to something or not. It's so incredibly random.
I don't know. Well, he also asked, he just said, he asked some brilliant questions that don't often make it into the program because you know, the idea of asking someone these questions is a different beast. But he also asked, just redesign the Cybermen on the spot. That's what he wanted you to do. But this isn't a visual medium.
Yeah. Well, I can, funnily enough, I've spent the better part of the last 2 weeks redesigning a Cyberman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a really bizarre coincidence. So I've used the Timeless Child redesigned head as the base, and to describe it in an audio form, it's basically that head on a modernized Earthshock body.
Cool.
Maybe at some point, I'm hoping soonish it'll be on I'll tweet it. I'll tweet that design
and
out.
I will share it on the Twitter. So there you go.
But I love Venice.
The question at hand. Your thoughts on Venice?
I don't.
I love
I actually, my friend Ellie, who's Italian, we went on this Italian road trip, and Venice was one of the stops, and it's a beautiful place. I have a book somewhere of just nice pictures of Venice. I really, really hope to go back there before it does sink into the ocean, because I think it's actually inevitable, isn't it? Isn't it like a matter of time?
Happen. Yeah, definitely.
I don't secretly hate it. No.
No. Well, if you did, you're not going to bring it up now, are you?
That's true.
Maybe you do secretly hate it.
This is all my ruse. Yeah.
Well, that was in wonderfully weird fashion as usual. Bloody Twitter. We covered a lot there. And as we wind down, we're getting ready for I don't know where I'm going with this. We're getting ready for a calm evening. We've got our dressing gown on, our house coat, our carpet slippers, and we've got a pipe and a glass of whiskey. And as we head to our calm, I really don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, there's a thunderstorm blowing outside. It's a full moon. The curtains are blowing even though the window's shut.
As we walk through our Edwardian mansion, we head towards our sitting room, and inevitably we have to walk down the corridor of fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting tip.
Sarah Jane?
Do I have the right?
Some people's small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
In the nursery compared to us, 10 million years in absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could no more.
I'm not just the title. I'm the last of the title.
It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind.
Love abides in the face of everything.
The corridor of fame. The corridor of fame.
We got there in the end. I don't know what that was, but we got there.
Love it. It painted a stark picture in my mind.
Yes. So, the corridor of fame. Essentially, it's a hall of fame for Doctor Who. We've got some great names in there so far. All of the Doctors are in automatically. They're already in.
Absolutely.
They're there. And we've got some companions in there. We've got some directors. We've got some writers. We've got a lot of people in there now. It's getting crowded, but we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. We're adding another. So
until the corridor runs out of oxygen, we're going to keep adding.
Definitely. Now, Mr. Groves, please inform me who you would like to enter the corridor of fame.
I've been thinking very long and hard about this. This is very tricky, but I landed on someone who I think absolutely deserves their place in the corridor, and that is Michael Pickwood, production designer.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
lovely. So for anyone at home who isn't aware, I know bits, I know drips and drabs, because my memory is awful. But remind everyone of Michael Pickwood and their work and what they do.
So I think he is most notable for designing what is probably the number one fan favorite TARDIS interior, which is the Matt Smith snowmen onto then, of course, the Peter Capaldi incarnation of that TARDIS. Now, I think we can all agree it's kind of a perfect design. I think he absolutely smashed it. It's a complete modern retelling of that original white console room. And yeah, he was the production designer on the show, I think from the Christmas Carol right through till Well Enough for Time, maybe even Twice Upon a Time. He did that whole chunk essentially. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but his contribution to the show is historical. I think there's an incredibly consistent, beautiful look on everything he worked on. TARDIS obviously included, but I don't know. He was a total genius for pulling off some really, really amazing sets and designs on the budget they had. To a point where you really, as we've said about classic Who wobbly sets and stuff, you do not question a lot of the time the sets in that era of Doctor Who. It's just it's the same with good editing or good sound design. It doesn't pull you out. You don't notice it. And I think that's really an understated part of that era of Doctor Who is just every set they're on, you are immersed. You believe it,
Completely agree. Well, yeah, I'm thinking back to like episodes within that run, where particularly the Capaldi era, in terms of set design, is just consistently beautiful. and I don't know why. I don't know obviously how rigorous his involvement was in particular ones, but like one that just for some reason jumped into my head would be the Under the Lake Before the Flood 2-parter.
I was about to say that. I think we
Really?
inhabit the same brain, Josh.
I think we do. But yeah, I'm just when I thought about sets, I thought, what a set that is.
That base,
I mean, yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, I mean that TARDIS is the one, and it's just made it gets better and better. That's the TARDIS gets better because you have that first reveal in the Snowmen, which is the shot that I imagine so many people would have loved to have pulled off for a TARDIS reveal, where you go through the doors. Amazing shot. What a shot. But and the design only improves when Capaldi comes in, because you then have, the slight color change. You've got the all of the bookcases coming in, which that really tops it off. And I don't know if you've seen, there's I actually forgot to ask Douglas McKinnon about this, which I regret. But there's this deleted scene from Listen, I believe it is, where the TARDIS is full of candles.
Oh, I think I've seen this.
And I saw a picture of it the other day, and I mean, that set looks beautiful wherever it is, however it looks, that TARDIS set. But that picture in particular, I thought, oh my God, that just sets that TARDIS off.
It's such a flexible space. Like as a set, the directors had so much free reign to shoot it beautifully and to really make it feel like a living and breathing environment. There's just, especially Capaldi, I don't know, there's something about him in that TARDIS where it's just like he undescribably works. The Doctor.
Yeah, because I think though Matt works great in it, I always feel like it is Capaldi's TARDIS over Matt's, because I think Matt's first TARDIS just nails his personality. Like you can feel Matt running through it. But yeah, the fact that it's this cold, it just seems like quite a cold environment. It's not as homely as the other TARDISes had been up till that point. And arguably, the new TARDIS it just feels cold and alien in a way that the other TARDIS designs haven't really, to me, since probably the classic run. Probably since Colin and Sylvester. I don't think it's been that alien place. It's a really great pick.
I think that's what Michael Pickwood does so well. Like, just to add to it, I'm a big sci-fi futuristic spaceship fan when Doctor Who does that, more so probably than the historicals, but he really captures that 60s vibe really, really well. I think it's built into his design aesthetic, where it plays on that futuristic but kind of creepy, unsettling. There's a look, a real distinct feel to it, especially take like World Enough and Time. I think Ace Creeper's actually making that episode black and white, but if you put that episode black and white, it could be a 60s episode. It's designed perfectly.
Well, I'm so excited for it, because he's done World Enough and Time, and he's now doing a feature length recut of World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls as a full
film,
like, as a film called Genesis of the Cybermen, which is so cool. Can't wait for that. So obviously, I mean, everyone who's listening to this probably knows George anyway, but go and check George's channel out and eagerly anticipate that alongside the rest of us.
It's in 4x3. It's extended edition. It's more exciting to me than the Justice League, the Snyder Cut.
Yeah,
You know?
like Zack Snyder. I really hope George at the start of this puts this has been presented in 4x3 to preserve the integrity of George Sherd's artistic vision. Something like that would be great. But yeah, amazing pick. Great pick. Another unsung hero of Doctor Who entering the corridor. And yeah, I just to end this segment, just that TARDIS. It's the best interior, I think.
Yeah. And once again, I'll take as read. Series 1 Eccleston TARDIS is my favourite, but that I think objectively is the best it's ever looked. The best the TARDIS has ever looked. And it's going to be hard to top it, frankly, ever again.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Definitely agreed. Well, I I'm sad to say these words, but we're coming to the end of the show. I'm always sad to say these words because I love these recordings so much. But we do have one final question before we leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that question is one that I ask to all my guests. I never get the same answer, which is great. 15 episodes, 15 times I've asked this question, and I've never had even a vaguely similar answer, really. But the question is, loosely in a sentence, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
It's a great question, and I think if I had to, I'm going to think out loud for a maximum of 30 seconds until I get this pinned down, because it's in a sentence. The truth is, I think Doctor Who to me is showing that. See, I'm gonna get this right. I wish I plotted this out more ahead of time, but you're getting more.
It's a tough question.
Doctor Who to me shows the full extent of how much you can love life and the full spectrum of life, and how vastly different and wild and unpredictable it can be.
Beautiful answer again. And again, just to cut something that has been not really covered so far in my answers to that question. So that is a lovely way to end the show.
There we go.
And it's been lovely chatting to you. And before we go, please plug away. Where can people find you? What are you doing next? What is happening in Groves HQ?
Well, frankly, I'm extremely boring. I don't really have nothing to plug. You can follow me on Twitter, I suppose, would be the main one, which is Gerard Groves. That's pretty much it. I have made a very conscious effort on Twitter to more or less exclusively ring fence it as Doctor Who. So I've blocked out the rest of the horrors that Twitter tends to create. So it's a very much Doctor Who happy place for me. So please feel free to follow me, and we can chat Doctor Who. Yeah, that's it. That's literally all I've got to plug.
Definitely. Well, that's fine. And obviously you can follow me on Twitter at Josh Ryan Carr. You can follow the podcast at Who Knew Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram. Why not? Who Knew DWPod. And you can email us, whoknewdwpod@gmail.com, and we're wherever you get your podcasts, and now on YouTube as well. Who Knew Tube, it's called. So you can. Who knew, eh? Who knew? Well, thank you once again. It's been a great time.
Oh, thank you. My absolute pleasure.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. It's been great. I've had a lot of fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can check us out wherever you get your podcasts and now on YouTube. Please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you can.
as it really helps us out. And a massive thanks to the Sononauts for lending their cover of the Doctor Who theme to be the theme for the podcast.